Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today we discuss if the Indiana Pacers are getting screwed by the referees. Why are we talking about this? Well, if you've been following this series, you guys know this that the end of game one ended in, let's say, a controversy with officiating between the Knicks and the Pacers, where there was a few, bad calls that went against the Indiana Pacers, and the New York Knicks ended up getting a 4-point win in game one. And that was kind of the topic of discussion the very next day was like, hey, did the Indiana Pacers get screwed? Well, game two happens, and, Jalen Brunson misses a little bit of time with a foot injury. He comes back. He's spectacular in the fourth quarter again for the Knicks. And the OG Anunoby also gets hurt in this game too. But he was spectacular before he got hurt. And the Knicks win by 9 points in game two. And then after the game, a news story kind of starts developing, or I guess it's not a news story, but a Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, basically comes out and says like, "Hey, we're getting screwed by the refs," and I'm paraphrasing. Basically says like, "Hey, we need to get this game needs to be called a little bit more fairly." Basically, to kind of summarize what he said, and he did what a lot of coaches do. Um, where you kind of campaign for your team and you campaign for your guys and you say, hey, we need to get more calls. It's a thing that coaches typically do in the playoffs. It happens a few times a year. And it's kind of like one of those things to, kind of put the officials on notice and to kind of make it a public story where now when officials are going to be officiating game three in Indiana too, where they're going to be start thinking about like, oh, okay, well, maybe we don't let Josh Hart get away with that kind of contact. Maybe we don't let Brunson do that kind of bump on the offensive drive. Little ticky tack things like that. That maybe they look the other way at MSG. That maybe at Indiana, maybe these guys decide to change their mind. Again, it's a thing that has happened. Throughout time with coaches complaining about officiating to kind of like bring attention to the referees in the next game and to, just make it public discourse. It's a thing that's happened. Steve Kerr did it earlier this year with Nikola Jokic. And, Steve Kerr has won 4 NBA championships and multiple as a player. So I have absolutely no problem with Rick Carlisle doing it. But this is where I do have a problem with it. And this is a thing that very, very, very much scares me for the Indiana Pacers, not only for this series, but just for kind of like the future of this little group that they have here. So after the game, on top of Rick Carlisle's comments, the Indiana Pacers submitted a complaint to the league. I'll go ahead and show you guys this tweet here that kind of summarizes up the report that they submitted to the league. So the Indiana Pacers submitted a complaint including 78 plays they felt went against them incorrectly in games 1 and 2 at Madison Square Garden. An ESPN source said Indiana identified 49 such plays from game 2 and submitted them to the league office overnight. Oh my God. Oh my God, guys. 79 plays, 48 plays. I believe 48 plays would be around, it's close to like a quarter. So you're basically saying that an entire quarter's worth of plays in game 2 went against you. That is absolutely insane. They're going full Daryl Morey here. And the reason I said that I'm concerned about the Indiana Pacers and their how it looks for them projecting for the rest of the series, or even just the just the future of this group here, which I know sounds extreme, but that's loser mentality. That is such a loser beta mentality. And it's not complaining about the officiating. I'm okay with what Rick Carlisle did in the postgame. Even if players wanted to say something about the officiating, I'm completely okay with that. Say what you want to say. But the fact that you go and submit a complaint to the league, what does that do? What does that do? That doesn't change anything. That doesn't change anything. Daryl Morey has done this multiple times. It didn't do jack shit. This is it's especially game 2. This happened overnight. So that means that the fact that they were watching, the people for the Indiana Pacers were watching that game in MSG, game 2, and they were literally every single time they could find something that they could say that went against us, they wrote it down. They were basically looking for excuses during the game, basically going like, oh, well, that play went against us, that play went against us, that play went against us. And they wrote them down, each one individually, and then submitted them to the league. That is loser mentality. That is something that the players on that team probably will see that report and or that complaint. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, no wonder we lost that game. No wonder we lost that game. The refs were screwing against us. It's okay to say that stuff publicly, but then behind the scenes to be like, hey, Tyrese Halliburton, you have to be more aggressive. You need to figure out how to play off the ball a little bit. And maybe TJ McConnell can play with you. Maybe you have to learn to hit mid-range shots and be able to come off screens and create your offense that way. Maybe in the fourth quarter, we have to learn to protect the offensive glass, because that's been the strategy that the New York Knicks have been deploying in this game. In the fourth quarter, they are attacking the offensive glass aggressively, and they are giving Jalen Brunson the ball, and no one on the Indiana Pacers can stop him. That is kind of more of the story of the series. If you're looking at it from a basketball perspective, again, if you're an Indiana Pacers fan, maybe you do think the officials definitely screwed you in game one and maybe weren't as favorable to you in game two. But 79 plays, 48 or 49, 48 or 49 in game two. That is 49 in game two. That is beta loser mentality. If you're a player on that team, what do you think about that? Again, it's one thing to be mad about it, to steam about it, but I hope behind the scenes the Pacers are talking about actual basketball things that they can do on the court to change this series. Because everyone always wants to complain about officiating because it's so easy. And this is one thing where, have I ever complained about a referee before? Yeah, sure. But here's the thing about officiating. I think most of the people that complain about officiating have never once tried to officiate a rec game for like 9-year-olds ever in their life and have never thought about trying to. Officiating is hard, man, and not a lot of people want to do it. So people are like, oh, well, why don't we make sure all of these officials are the best ever? It's like, you know why? Because most people don't want to officiate. But so like that's kind of like my and again, everything, especially like on an NBA level, everything's moving super fast. And us as fans get the opportunity to see the replay in slow motion and 100 different angles versus the referees have completely different angles and they have to make the play like that. Now, again, I'm not saying officiating is perfect. That's not all what I'm saying. There's definitely a lot of things we can do to make it better. I'm open to always trying to make anything better. But for the Indiana Pacers to submit a complaint, 78 plays, 49 in game two, that just seems like loser mentality. And I do not like that. Did they see what Daryl Morey did multiple times in Houston and Philadelphia when he did this stuff where I think Daryl Morey like contested the results or something like that. I think he even did in the previous series against the Knicks, kind of did something where he submitted something to the league. But, you guys know how many NBA titles Daryl Morey won in Houston? How many he won in Philadelphia? 0. You know why? Because if you do shit like that, it's a loser mentality. It's a loser mentality. And again, I got a Hilton Magic sign. I don't know how much you can see it on the screen lined up behind me. I went to the same school as Tyrese Halliburton. I cheered for him 2 years at Iowa State. I very much want him to succeed in the NBA. This isn't an anti-Indiana Pacers thing. I have no loyalty towards the New York Knicks or anything whatsoever. I just think that 78 plays that you got screwed over. Okay, how many plays, because here's a little story, and I know I'm going long in this video, but, there was I believe it was 2022. It was the year after Baylor won the national title in college basketball. They're playing 1 versus 8 North Carolina in the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament. And I remember watching that game, and I don't know what it was on my algorithm on Twitter, but I remember just seeing a bunch of North Carolina people coming up in the last few minutes of that game where we're just completely shredding the officiating and basically being like, oh my God, if we lose this game, it's because they missed this call and this call. And I was watching that game, and I remember being like, wait a second, I see like at least 4 plays in this game. And North Carolina won the game, by the way, but I saw just as many plays that went against Baylor that were completely different plays that you guys were completely fine about not complaining about the officiating on those calls that actually went your way. Now, I understand this isn't the same thing here, but I'm sure there's probably New York Knicks fans that have watched games 1 and 2, and they're probably like, hey, you know what? The Indiana Pacers have complained about fouls. We think that they've been doing some things that they shouldn't have done. We think that maybe Miles Turner should have had more fouls, or we think, I don't know who, maybe Neesmith should have more fouls or something like that. Or, like, I just think this is a loser mentality of what the Indiana Pacers did, and Very concerning. We'll keep our eyes out on it for the future, but I do expect them to come back and win game 3. I do think what Rick Carlisle said in the post-game press conference did ring bells and is something that maybe influenced them a little bit. But my whole point with this video, if I can wrap it up here by saying this, I think the Indiana Pacers should drop this officiating stuff. Again, it's okay to be mad about certain calls, especially late in games that might influence things. But to go through an entire game, multiple games, and be like, because again, if they did that overnight, that means they were watching that game, looking for reasons why they would get screwed over, looking for reasons why they would lose that game. That is loser mentality. So there you have it, guys. That's going to do it for this video here today. Thank you so much for watching. If you got this far in the video, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Leave a comment of what you think about this video. It really helps us. If you do all 3 of those things, it really helps us out tremendously in the algorithm because we are a small channel. I think I'm at like 382 subs right now. So if you can please help us get that subscriber rate up and hit that like button, it really helps us out. More people get to see the video. So thank you very much for watching, guys. And I'll talk to you next time.